Hello and welcome to Casual Learning. I'm your host, John Bannan. Today I have a great recipe for you. This is, in my opinion, the world's greatest Christmas cookie from Poland. Uh, I learned it from my mother, who's Polish, and she learned it from her mother, Helen Kostolek, whose parents were from Poland. Um, and this is a great cookie, and once you try one, you'll be making them the rest of your life. The cookie's called a Kephles, and I put the recipe on the board for you. And I'm going to go through the recipe step by step and show you how it's done. It's actually quite a simple cookie. It begins with creaming a half a pound of butter with a half a pound of cream cheese. That will make two dough balls for you. And the most you need to make is either 2 or 4 dough balls. You can double this recipe if you want to make more, a lot more. But this is really just for one serving. I mean, one mass number of cookies that everybody can enjoy. All right, so the first step is cream a half a pound of butter and a half a pound of sugar together. So over here I have my mixer, and let's get to the first step. I got my butter. Now you can leave this butter out until it gets a little soft. It'll just make the creaming process easier, but it doesn't have to be cold right out of the fridge, but it's not melted either. And I'm using salted butter. I frankly have never tried it with unsalted butter. Be my guest if you want to try that. Now I got to have 8 ounces of cream cheese. This is Philadelphia brand cream cheese. So 2 sticks of butter and 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese. We'll throw that whole thing in there. Then what we want to do is we want to cream these two together. And depending on how cold the butter and the cream cheese is, this could take 30 seconds or it could take a minute or two. In this case, because those were room temperature, it didn't take very long at all. So there we go. We got our creamed butter and cream cheese. And to that, you're going to add 2 to 3 cups of flour. And what you want to do is you want to make a dough, but you want the dough to be, you don't want it sticky, but you don't want it dry. So you want it in between those 2 points. And that's roughly going to take 2 to 3 cups of flour. So we'll put our first cup of flour in there. And well, you got to be careful with the speed because then flour shoots out all over the place. But let's just go low speed for now. Give that flour a chance to absorb the butter and the cream cheese, the liquids in there, until it gets sticky. Now you can see it's sticky. This is way too sticky to be a proper dough. So we'll put the next cup of flour in there. We'll repeat the process. It only takes maybe 30 seconds of mixing to incorporate that flour into the creamed butter and cream cheese. Now you see that's drier, but it's still sticky. See how that's still sticky? So that's not dry enough. So we got to add more flour, and I would start off with a half a cup of more flour. So now I'm at 2.5 cups. We'll give it a try at that point and see what kind of dough we get. You notice I put a mixing attachment on this, not a whisk or a dough hook. That's still pretty sticky to the touch, so we're going to need more flour. We may have to go with the whole 3 cups. So put another half a cup of flour in there. Look at that. All right, now we're getting a much less sticky dough. It doesn't cling to you. It's not dry, super dry. So I would say that's good. So that was 3 cups of flour. Get the excess off of that attachment. Put it back in the bowl. Then we're going to take this out. And get it out of that mixing bowl. But there's always like some dry flour at the bottom. Try to incorporate that into the mixture, into the dough. You scrape the excess, the dough that got stuck on the side, scrape it off, put it in your main bowl. Now you don't have to knead this ball of dough. You don't. Um, I'm just working it to get all that flour, those dry bits at the bottom into the main ball. Then at some point I would separate it in two and form it into 2 separate dough balls. If it's so crumbly that it can't really stick to the ball, then I wouldn't even worry about it. Just throw that out. So there's a second ball. Not sticky, but not dry. Okay. So I had some crumbs at the bottom. Don't worry about those. Throw them out. So then you take these 2 balls and you wrap them in plastic wrap. And then you put these 2 dough balls in the fridge and you let it sit there for at least an hour or more. And in that hour or more, the butter and cream cheese will get harder, and this dough will get harder and hard enough so that you can work with it in making your cookies. So you take these 2 and you stick them in the fridge. And if you're really a big Kephles fan, you make another 2. All right. So we creamed the butter and cream cheese. We added the flour so that we got a dough that wasn't sticky but not too dry. And then we're going to put it in the refrigerator for at least an hour or more. Then, after that period of time, you take it out of the fridge, and you get something that looks like this. This is much, much harder than it originally was. Um, so now we're ready to the fourth step, which is roll out and cut into squares and fill and pull in the corners. So we got our dough ball. And what do you fill them with? Now, you fill them with something called cake and pastry filling. Now, for instance, this is Solo Brand's almond cake and pastry filling. Now, this is not almond paste. This is a cake and pastry filling. There's different flavors of this. Almond is absolutely the best flavor for making a Kephles. In fact, if you just make Kephles using almond filling, you'll be happy. However, you can experiment with other different flavors of filling. They won't be as good as the almond one, but they're good too. I think the second best filling would be cherry filling. But they make different flavors of filling. So you can use raspberry or plum or prune. Poppy seed is another flavor. Apricot. So there's a whole host of flavors you could use. Almond is the best by far, 10 times better than any other fillings. And then I would say cherry is probably the next best. But you can try all sorts. So now we take our dough ball out of the fridge and take the saran wrap off, plastic wrap. And now we got to beat this down on the table and roll it out so that we can cut it into squares. So here I've got a board, and first thing I'll do is I'll put some flour on it because you don't want the dough sticking to the board. So I take the dough ball and I just start pressing it down with my hand. It's stiff because it was in the fridge, so it's a much stiffer dough than it was when I stuck it in. Keep pressing it down. You can flip it over and put some more flour in the spot you lifted it from. Help it not stick to the board. Okay, and then you want to bring the rolling pin in. Just, lightly put a little bit of flour on the pin itself, and then start rolling. You roll in one direction, up and down, and then you switch directions and you roll left to right. And you keep alternating up and down and left and right. Now you want this to be pretty thin. I would say definitely no more than 1/8 of an inch. It could be thinner than that, but you do not want a super thick Kephles. So a little bit of dough actually makes quite a few Kephles. So you may want to sort of feel it and see how thin it is, and that's pretty thin. That's probably 1/16 of an inch, anywhere between 1/8 and 1/16 of an inch. That's good. So the next thing you want to do is you want to make squares. So you can cut off the uneven edges. We'll just take these scraps and we'll form them into another ball, and we'll use that ball and we'll roll it out again and make more Kephles with the scraps. So now we want to make squares. you want to make, oh, maybe 2-inch squares, roughly speaking, somewhere around there. So let's do that. And I'm just using the back of a butter knife to just score it. They don't have to be perfect. They all sort of have character to them. They're all roughly square shaped. If it's a rectangle, that's fine. All right. So at this point, what you want to do is you want to fill them. So you take your filling and well, the first thing I do, sometimes I like to just lift these up, separate them from each other because it makes it easier to make each individual Keffel if they're separated. That way you don't have a problem with filling going on adjoining Keffels. All right, so now we take a little bit of our filling, not a full teaspoon. That's maybe anywhere from a quarter to a half. I would say a quarter to a half a teaspoon tops, and you stick it in the middle, right like that. Now this is cherry filling that I'm using right now. If I wanted some almond, I have my almond. So you grab a little bit, quarter teaspoon, half teaspoon of almond filling, put it in one spoon, and push it off with another spoon, back of another spoon, put it right in the middle. Now this filling is sticky, so it'll stick to the dough. Now, some people consider these a pastry. I don't. I think they're a cookie, but doesn't really matter. They're delicious. Okay, so then what do? Once you have your filling in the middle, I'm not going to do the rest of them just for sake of time, but you take it and then you take uh, catty corners and you fold them over. So you pick it up, you take one corner, you fold it over to the middle of the filling, and then you take the other corner and you fold that over the first corner, and then you pinch it down like this. And if you need to, you can even dip your hands in a ramekin in water like this and help seal that fold joint. And then you take it and you place it on a baking tray or something like this. So again, you fold one over, fold the other side over, pinch it. If you need a little water because it's not sticking perfectly, you can put a little water on there, pinch it, make sure it closes up, and stick it on your baking tray. You don't have to squeeze down or anything on the filling. You're just sort of sealing it. You're wrapping it in this sort of sheet of dough. And you don't have to be 100% accurate with everything you do here. The dough is going to be different sizes, might be different thicknesses. It doesn't matter. But you do need to have this sort of shape. This is a really fun thing to do with your kids. Kids love Kephles, and they love making them. They're fun to make. Okay, so I put a lot of them on a baking sheet like this. I think this, what is this, a Teflon? I forget. Baking sheet. It could be any baking sheet, really any cookie baking sheet will work. Um, so you got your baking sheet, and well, you fill it up. Obviously, I'm not going to fill it up now because of time, but then you cook it. So you put it, you preheat the oven to 325 degrees, and you cook it for about 20 minutes. Now, every oven is a little different, so you got to keep an eye on them. But you want them to start turning brown. If you see a little bit of brown, a slight brown shade on them, that's good. That's done. That's where you want them. So bake at 325 Fahrenheit for 18 to 20 minutes until it's just slightly brown. In fact, I'd probably go with 20 minutes. And when they come out of the oven, they're hot and they're somewhat mushy because they're made with butter and cream cheese, so it needs a chance to solidify. So you put them on a rack, let them cool off, and then once they're cooling off, may take 15 minutes. Once they're cooled off, then take some powdered sugar and generously sprinkle the top of them with powdered sugar. So they're basically coated with powdered sugar. You only have to coat the top. You don't have to coat the back, just the top. And then they're done. And they look like these when they're finished. Now, that's a cherry one, and this is an almond one. Now, some people like these warm out of the oven, and some people like them the way I like them, which is cold in the refrigerator. So I always stick these in the refrigerator, and once they get cold, that butter really solidifies, and they're the most delicious things ever as far as cookies go. And they will not stay around very long in your house. So I'm going to take one right now. The almond is definitely the best one. Mm, that is the best. You will never have a better cookie in your life. Delicious. Your biggest problem is going to be trying to avoid eating them all because they are fattening. They're full of butter and cream cheese, and sugary filling. So watch out. But you will love these. You will never regret making these. Okay, so go make yourself some Kephles. They're a great Christmas cookie, a tradition. In my household, we make them once a year because they're somewhat labor intensive, and they're nice to have at Christmas. And they're very colorful, and you can serve them to your guests and enjoy them. So I hope you learned something, and enjoy your Kephles. Take care.